So everyone, welcome to the Creative Industries podcast with Casey Dale, our special guest. How you doing, Casey? Welcome.
Yeah, all good. Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, and we've got our mini live audience with us today as well, which I'm so excited about. You guys can get involved, asking questions and things like that too. And Casey works as a producer in all kinds of media, podcasts, video production now as well, radio. I worked at the BBC before.
Yeah.
For any of our artists who are listening, specifically BBC Introducing, which is a great platform for up-and-coming artists. So wherever you're interested in the radio or podcast or media side of things, or in the side of things that's more to do with the sort of maybe you're a developing artist. I know you can give up some tips for that as well. We can talk about those things. So if you have any questions on these things, go for it. But today, normally on the show, we'll have our first 3 questions. And then we'll rewind the clock to find out what it was like for Casey when he was kind of your age, about 16 to 25-year-old. And then we'll go through your story and maybe get some tips along the way, if that's cool. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
So, Casey, what myth would you like to kill about your job? Are there any myths about your job as a producer you'd like to be like, let's put that to bed?
So, I mean, I think in the introduction where you listed everything that I do and have done, that's like the key thing. I think it's very easy for people to say, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
I think you hear that a lot when it comes to any sort of creative industry. But you can do anything that you want to do, even if you're just giving it a go. You might not be great at it. You might not find a passion in it. But you don't have to just do radio. You don't have to just do podcasting. You don't have to just do audio or video. You can do a bit of everything. And it actually makes you more appealing to potential employers, or if you're going freelance and you want to run your own little business and do everything yourself, you know, you can mold yourself to whatever is coming your way, rather than just being like, no, I only do audio. Can't touch that, sorry.
I like that.
There's so many opportunities out there.
Because even in the audio world, there's like certain roles where like, I'm just a mix engineer and stuff like that. So,
yeah, definitely. And you know, I think it's from a music point of view, when someone says that they're a mix engineer versus someone who masters versus someone who does live sound, like, you can do it all. That is okay. You might have your preference and you might have the one thing that you're really, really good at, but being versatile will help you out so much, especially as you meet people. The music industry and the creative industry is all about people and conversations. Yeah. So being able to be, you know, in conversation, someone says, oh, I'm looking for someone to do some video, but do you know anyone? Yeah, I can do that. You know, and that's a new opportunity for you. Yeah. Or you know the right person who does audio and video, and you can point them in the right direction.
Awesome. Is there anything that most people like out there on the street don't realize about your work and your job?
Is not as glamorous as some people think it is.
Yeah.
It's really not. It is a job. It can be very fun. It can be incredibly rewarding. I think when you look at the human side of things and telling stories, that is a really great way of doing it through audio, through podcast, through radio. You get that reward quite intrinsically. I think from a outside point of view, you see the free gigs, you see the sort of nights out, you see the award ceremonies, you see all that. They are so few and far between. A lot of the time you are sat in a dark room, headphones on, not talking to anyone. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of that background grinding, you know, head down, knuckle down, that isn't really seen or talked about.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are very fortunate to, their job is to sort of schmooze. You know, there's a thing called radio pluggers, for example, who work for labels, and they come to people like me, a radio producer, and they're like, hey, we'll take you out for a drink and let's talk about music. And
okay.
That's great. But when you're doing a live broadcast or when you're doing a podcast recording, it's all about that moment. And it's about knuckle down, make sure that everything is right. You know, you can have fun while you do it, but you've then got to take that audio away, pop your headphones on, or sit yourself in the room with your speakers or whatever it is, and get down and do it.
Yeah, so it has the glamorous moments, but there is real work being done in the background, Absolutely. Of course. Like, yeah totally.
I've gone from, in the last 12 months, I've gone from that BBC introducing the music side, the very, very creative side, to a more corporate creative world, which was a huge shift for me. And in that world, there's a lot of reporting. There's a lot of making sure that people are getting their money's worth in particular. Mm-hmm. So it made me realize how important that getting your head down and getting stuff done, but also knowing where you are on your route and being able to report back. It's very easy to just be like, oh, yeah, I'll get that done. But when you've got someone who's paying a lot of money for your service saying, no, but when are you going to get that done? Because we kind of need that. Very different way of looking at it. So, so the biggest thing is not all glitz and glamour. There is a little bit of that. But getting your head down, getting the job done is always the most important thing. And sometimes it can be very quick. Sometimes it can take a very long time, especially when you're quite detail-oriented like me, where you're like, that doesn't sound quite right. That's got to sound perfect.
Yeah. And that level of commitment to detail is what's going to make your work show. Like, for example, I was working with a student yesterday, working on music production stuff, and we were talking, they're wanting to submit to this label, and I was like, the people at that label will notice the level of detail. They'll notice. And the fans won't maybe know why they're noticing it, but they'll just feel like, oh, this is a better tune than another one, or this is produced better. And usually it's because of that detail, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's also a bit of a burden of knowledge, I guess you could call it, where when you're working on something for so long, or you work in a certain industry or with certain music or podcasts or whatever it is, when you hear another one and it's not done well, you hear it so much. Yeah. The amount of podcasts that, from an outside perspective, are huge, like do really big numbers, but it's because of the personality. Because when I listen to the production side of it, I'm like, how has that got out the door? It's awful. Like, you can't hear people, or the levels are off, or whatever it is. Somebody could have taken just a little bit longer, forgotten about the fun bit of going out and, having time with the team and, all that stuff that is important for it. But if the product that is going out to people isn't right, just spend that little bit longer, and it will make 10 times the difference.
So the pressure's on me to get this one really well edited before
I will
goes
be
out on
listening back.
Super.
I will.
You will be
back.
listening. Yeah. I'll just be sweating away editing this. Like,
no, all good. And like, doing stuff like this is brilliant. It's another part of the job that being able to go back and talk about what you do when you're sat in that dark room. Like, these are the moments that you do that for. Being able to tell other people what you do, when it can be such a isolating, very intrinsic role where you have to take yourself away from people in order to do the job.
Yeah. And one thing we always do in the podcast is we'll rewind the clock to be like, what was it like for you when you were the age of a lot of our listeners and Super Jam students, 16, 25. But before we do, we got our third opening question that we always start with. And this is about what is the biggest scandal in your industry. And I'm not really talking about tabloid style, like who got with who. It's more
there's a lot of those. A lot of them get out there, yeah.
It's more things that you think could be better or improved, or you're like, I can't believe it's still done that way. Is there anything like that you'd want to sort of reveal without naming any names?
So I'll go with radio on this, because I spent my most time in radio. Yeah. There is a way that the radio industry measures the number of people that are listening, which is called RAJAR. Now, it's
RAJAR,
RAJAR. Okay. Do not ask me what it stands for, because I will not be able to tell you.
In Scotland, when people say they're on a rager, it means they're really angry.
No, RAJAR.
It's not that. Okay.
RAJAR. And it's incredibly old-fashioned.
Okay.
So the way that when you hear radio stations or radio shows, they have X number of thousand listeners or millions of listeners. This is based on physical paper calendars being posted out to people with days of the week and hours of the day, and you mark what radio station you listen to at those times, and you send them back in. Now, one calendar is worth 1,000 listens.
Whoa.
So if a radio station has 100,000 listeners, for example, that means 100 people have come back and said, I listen to this radio station. Okay. In the world of digital,
Yeah.
when you can see things down to the exact number,
Yeah.
why we are still doing that, I don't know. I have my theories in that if that changed, would some big radio stations' numbers suddenly drop massively?
Yeah.
Because, for example, a national radio station, if you had this calendar in front of you and you were busy and you were like, I will fill it out, but don't know when, and you go, I've got to get that back. You might just go, I listen to this one station all day, every day. When actually you might flick around, you might jump around. There might be someone that you really like on another station. You might listen to some local radio for some news, for example. Doesn't take all of that into account.
Yeah.
And that for me is the big thing, that everyone just sort of accepts that that's how it is because it's how it's always been done.
Yeah.
But actually, I think there is so much more to learn from that digital side of it and actually knowing not just the number of listeners, but who is listening.
Yeah.
And this is a huge difference between radio and podcast. Radio is very much throw it out there and see what comes back from a numbers point of view. Podcasting, whenever you distribute your podcast, you can see exactly when people are listening, how long they're listening for, what age they are. Depending on what sort of tracking you've got, if you do it on social media, you can, if you do it for LinkedIn, for example, you can see where they work, what kind of role they are in. And you can then tailor your content to those people that are actually consuming what you're putting out there. With radio, as long as the radar numbers look good, you can put out there what you want.
Oh, okay.
So sometimes we might not actually be tailoring our output to the audience that are actually there.
Ah, makes sense. Makes sense. That is really, I've never heard that before. I'm just imagining I'm like, who fills these in? I'm just imagining a bunch of elderly
Nobody in
ladies.
radio has ever seen one of these calendars. Nobody in radio has ever been given one. We're not
strange.
even convinced that they exist.
I know.
But this is what everyone goes with, from the big national radio stations at the BBC, Bauer, Global, all the way down to
feel like I'm in
your community
1920.
radio. Yeah, but everyone just goes, yeah, if that's how it goes.
That's phenomenal. So that's our kind of main opening questions. Thanks for that, Casey. And like I said, we're going to find a bit about some of the mysteries or misconceptions about your job. And I think that's kind of cool to start with that. But we want to find out about your story, because Creative Industries Podcast, most of our listeners are young creatives getting out there. And they're doing amazing. But what was it like for you when you were like 16 to 25, around about that age? Were you starting to get your passion for all this? Or what was it like for you?
So I started off in live events when I was 13. So born and raised in Ashford. My brother basically saw a Kent band called Underground Heroes from Chatham. They did... Do you remember when Lily Allen did a chat show? She did one series and then it got scrapped.
On TV or
on
radio?
TV.
I don't actually.
Okay, so
I'd probably enjoy it.
And
she's quite entertaining.
every single episode, there was a battle of the bands. So I can't remember how long the series was, but a band would play every single night, and then people would vote, and then there would be a final. And Underground Heroes won that. And my brother went to go see them off the back of this, and then my brother's one of these people who will always end up backstage somehow. Don't know
we
how.
all know someone like that, yeah.
And he met them, and he was like, my birthday's coming up, I want you to do a gig for me. So they said, well, we don't really do private events, but if you put on a gig for us in Ashford, then we'll come and play it.
That's cool.
So we rented out...
Had he ever put on a gig before?
No, absolutely not.
Legend.
We rented out a school hall, private school hall, about 300 capacity, and it sold out. Had a local Ashford support act. It was just off the back of them doing the TV.
How did it sell it? Just because their name was on that show?
Yeah, exactly that. And it was their only sort of Kent gig at the time. They'd done a lot up in Chatham, but down in Ashford, that sort of central towards south and east.
Did you guys know anything about promotion then, or sound then, or were you just sort of winging it?
We were flyering. We were out in the town centre flyering.
That works well, even in the days of the internet, getting out there.
Yeah, just being visible. Just being visible. And we found that there was an appetite for it.
Yeah.
And it hadn't been long since the high speed from Ashford to London had been installed. So people were used to getting on a train and going to London. So we said, there's a market for this. So at that first gig, I was sort of the operations manager. It was basically me and my brother. We gave each other these roles that really meant nothing. We just did everything and made sure that it worked. But yeah, we found that there was a market for people who didn't want to or couldn't afford to travel to London and wanted something locally. So we started to put on gigs. It grew and grew and grew. We had the likes of Example, Chase and Status. Dubstep was huge at the time, so we had like Mode Step and Borgor come and play for us. Like these names that people don't know now, but at the time were really big.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was sort of from 13 to 16, and then at school it was, what university do you want to go to?
Yeah.
And around that time we had been asked to go and do an interview at BBC Introducing in Kent.
Oh, because of your promotion
Because
activity.
of the gigs.
Yeah. And you were, what, 16 then?
16.
Cool.
And
so at 13 to 16, you were doing the gigs with your brother?
yeah, just while I was at school.
Epic.
You know, every few months, just renting out a school hall. We had a security team, sound guys. We basically ran it all through our parents, so they dealt with the financial side of it, but we sort of ran it.
That's cool.
And that was where I did some of my first presenting as well. So I hosted those shows. So I was sort of production manager, stage manager, and then would grab the mic, go on and introduce the next.
And what's cool is these are all things a lot of our students get to do at the Super Jam shows as well. Like we have like behind the scenes and kind of, so yeah, that early experience is really important, isn't it?
But those roles are so important as well. Like it's very easy to forget the people that are behind the stage, at the side of the stage, running the sound, in that front of house box for the whole gig, just making sure that everything looks and sounds good. You know, even down to the security teams, we had a really brilliant connection with our local security teams who acknowledged that we were kids ultimately, but we just had a really open dialogue with them, and we were just like, we want this to be right, we don't want to get in any trouble, like we want to bring this to Ashford. So we had this interview at BBC Introducing in Kent with a guy called Jacob Rickard, who was the old presenter, went on to produce like Annie Mac at Radio 1.
Whoa,
he now runs a creative agency, so he's from
It shows you how there's these little stepping stones, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Each opportunity can lead to another one, but you're never quite sure what.
Exactly that. I mean, everyone in radio knows each other, and Kent is a really strong hotbed for radio talent. There was a guy called James Bursey, for example. He used to work at BBC Radio Kent on the shows that I ultimately worked on. He now lives out in LA and is Zane Lowe's producer.
Cool.
And he's from Kent.
Been watching quite a lot of Zane Lowe content recently on the YouTube and that,
So when Zane moved to Apple Music from Radio 1, part of the condition of him doing it was that James came with him. Cool. So he moved out to LA. So the Kent radio.
Another example of people to people is so important. Like you build these relationships, you want to keep them, even at that top level, you want to just work with people you like, and who you trust.
I mean, Jacob and I still talk now. We're still friends. We're still in contact. We've given each other some different bits of work that have just come our way, and it's like, I know someone perfect for that. So he showed me around the radio studio, and the TV studio is there as well for Southeast Today. And on that day, I made the decision that I want to work in radio.
Oh, so you made that decision. That's cool. That I like it.
I came out there
lightning bolt.
This is what I want to do. Yeah, because it was that time where I was like, university, do I want to be a physio? Do I want to work in events? Is there a university course for that? But going into radio, it gave me everything that I wanted. Cool. That sort of being behind a microphone or behind the desk, creating live output, that live environment gave me that buzz that I needed. And I get to work with music. Cool. So I was like, brilliant.
So some of our listeners might have had that moment when they're like, I want to do this. This is what I'm going to do. What was some of the first steps you took after making that decision that maybe our students could emulate? What did you start to do?
So it was research first. So I said, I want to work in radio. What have the people that work in radio done?
Yeah.
So I looked at sort of the big names at the time. Radio 1 was sort of my home. That was what I listened to all the time. So I looked, what did Grimmy do? What did Greg James do? What did Annie Mac do? What did Zane Lowe? You know, what were their roots? Some of them went to uni and did student radio, and then won some awards through student radio, got work experience at Radio 1, and off they went. Some people fell into it. Grimmy started in TV, for example, when he was very young. You know, lots of different routes. But ultimately, I found that I had to make a decision within a few months of, do I want to go to uni? Yeah. And ultimately, the answer was no. It was, I would rather go out there and get real world experience, because that seems to be the quickest way of doing it.
Yeah.
a lot of people who fall into radio through university tend to go to study something completely different, discover the student radio station, find that they enjoy it, and actually their university course they don't use ever again because they're now working in radio, but they've just studied history or life sciences or whatever it may be. So I made the decision within a few months, kept getting told at school, you need to apply for university. No, I don't. I'm going to work in radio. Yeah, but you need a backup. No, I don't. I'm going to work in radio. So after that, it was go to my local community radio station, which was at the time Ashford Hospital Radio. They're now Radio Ashford. And I said, I want to work in radio. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
And they took me through this sort of onboarding process, started working on the breakfast show there with a guy called Webbo, who used to work with Chris Evans when he owned Virgin, so he was a camera operator. So he had a lot of stories and a lot of knowledge about the industry. And again, it was asking the right questions, talking to the right people, making those connections, picking up on little things and being like, oh, how could I get involved with that?
Not being afraid to ask questions is really
exactly
good.
That.
Which reminds me, live audience, feel free to jump in with questions at any point as well. If you have any questions, that's fine. I think this is a good time to ask one of my questions that I really wanted to ask, and I think this is going to be a regular one on the show as well. Around about that time, what was the worst piece of advice someone gave you?
Worst piece of advice. There was a lot of it. I think as well, like I was quite determined to prove people wrong when they were saying like you need to go to university. Like I was quite academic. I went to a grammar school and it was like almost expected.
Yeah.
And I think I do think it kind of goes back to that stay in your lane thing that I said at the beginning. When people said to me like, but that's not what you do. Like you're an academic. You're really good at maths. You're good at that. So surely that's what you want to pursue. You could do some really good for the world. You don't want to play music. No, that's what I want to do. Like I can have all that in the background, and I can find ways of bringing that into what I do. Radio is very big with maths. If you're back timing to the hour or to the news or anything like that, you're using maths all the time, but in a very different way. So I do think that stay in your lane, that's something that has always come up for me that I'm like, no, I don't want to. I want to give everything a go. I might be rubbish at it, but I want to give things a go.
I think especially when you're young, that's a good time to give different things a go and try new things as well. And you could do it at any point in your life as well, but especially when you're young, you're learning so much. It's such a good chance to experiment and try different things.
Quite often as well, you hear stories of people that are so determined to do that thing, and that is the one thing that they want to do, and then they get to do it, and then they're rubbish at it, or they hate it. Or they try something that they're like, I will never do that, and they find a passion in it. And that becomes their life. And it's those moments that it's like, if you didn't give that a go, your path would not have gone down in that direction. The people that you meet, the life that you lead are all about choices. And opening those choices out creates so many different routes ahead for you.
And I think it's good to note as well that, like we're saying, when you're young, it's a great time to experiment and make some of those choices, but never to feel like that's you stuck in your lane forever after that, because you could get to 25, 30, be like, I'm taking a U-turn, doing something different. That's fine as well. And I think with obviously through your career, which you're going to talk about, there's been different forks in the road where you've changed a little bit and learned new things and new skills and stuff like that. So you ended up working BBC Introducing.
I kind of went full circle.
Quite exciting,
So it was obviously where I made the decision. Those studios in Tunbridge Wells, that was where I made the decision I want to work in radio. So that was when I was 16. By the time I was 20, I had my first shift there, paid to work in radio.
So 16 to 20, 4 years.
4 years,
Doing the hospital radio in Ashford and taking other opportunities. But that was the big moment.
So I did 9 months at Ash Hospital Radio. Then I moved actually to CSR in Canterbury, where I did a dance music show. I really loved my dance music. That was what I wanted to do. And then I moved to Academy FM in Folkestone.
I think a good question to ask at this point is, when you're building up that experience, were you having to work for free a little bit along the way?
Oh, yeah.
Which is normal.
Community radio is exactly that. It's for the community. It's funded by the community. It pays for the radio to exist, but you don't get paid as such. But in radio, it's all about air miles. So it's about doing as much as you can, as often as you can, and just getting up there behind a microphone. If I listen back to some of those first lots of shows that I did, I would cringe. I would give myself I wouldn't be able to do it.
Amazing. Well, just to pause a second, we've got a question from Stan in the audience.
Yeah.
Stan, I know you're interested in radio as well, so what's your question?
Are there ways of getting into radio which don't involve university? Because I was thinking about that when you were bringing up stuff centered around academia and things.
Go on, I'll just repeat that question so everyone can hear it. Are there ways to get into radio that aren't for university? And you covered a little bit of that, but just maybe recap on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the living example of it. I didn't go to university. I made that decision because I knew that there were ways. And university has its place. You know, I'm not going to come here and say, I didn't do university, therefore you shouldn't do it. Like, sometimes it's about that. If you think radio or production and that is an idea for you, then maybe you should go to university, do that thing that you're good at or that you've been thinking about anyway, and then you've got the student radio to sort of fall back on and have a go at, and if it doesn't work out, then you've still got your other option. But for me, I knew what I wanted to do, I knew the route, so I would always recommend find your local community station. So in Canterbury, for example, I know that they have CSR, which is both student and community. So you don't have to be a student at either of the universities in order to do it. I didn't even live in Canterbury, and I was still coming in and doing it. So find a local station that is willing to have you in, watch a few shows, maybe pitch an idea for a show, something that you are passionate about, something that you can do, maybe once a week or once a fortnight, once a month, whatever it may be. You then build up A, your air miles, but B, especially from a presenting point of view, a demo.
Yeah.
You've got content that has been broadcast, that isn't that is properly produced, that you can then start just passing on to people and saying, do you mind having a listen to this? I'd love some feedback. Then the radio community, more than any other community I have ever met, love to share feedback, going to get a coffee is the biggest thing in this industry, and how you meet people. If you contact someone, they might take a little while to come back to you. It does get a bit like that, especially in that sort of live radio environment. But every single new person that I have approached to say, I'd love to sit down with you, just take half an hour of your time, just go for a coffee, the radio community loves it.
Cool.
We love talking about what we do. We love bringing new people in. A lot of industries do not like that. It's very much get in your own way and we'll talk when you're here. In radio, it's like, right, well, what do you know? What do you want to know? Talk to these people. They'll be able to help you out. Oh, I know someone locally. If I don't know someone, for example, if someone came to me and was like, I want to work in radio, I'm based in Canterbury or Herne Bay or wherever, who should I talk to? If I don't know someone, I'll know someone who knows someone.
Cool.
And I will go out of my way to get you in the door there. Because people did it for me. People did it for them before them, and you hear all these stories about how helping hands in radio is such a huge thing, and it's just a continuous cycle. We will continue to pass that on.
Amazing. So we're going the great answer to the question. Thanks for the question, Stan. Leon, you got a question?
Yeah, I've actually got two.
Okay, that's fine.
For upcoming musicians, right? What advice can you give to upcoming musicians when it comes to wanting to go on any radio station and standing out? Because obviously there's it's high competition for every musician because everyone wants to go on radio shows. What is some advice you could give us to help us stand out?
Great question. So what are you looking for when a new artist submits a song or a demo or anything like that?
I want to hear you, for starters. I don't want to hear you recreating someone else's music. I want to hear...
Like an original.
Exactly that, and there are obviously genres of music. I'm not expecting you to create a brand new genre that I've never heard before, but just something that makes it uniquely yours. I don't want to hear you replicating your favourite artist. So I think when you do as an example for me, the way that I look at it, I think when you do sort of interviews with artists, it's very easy to go, who are you inspired by? Or for me to tell the audience, this person is inspired by blah, blah, blah. But I think that immediately puts in the listener's head what you think it's going to sound like. So I would rather let the music do the talking first and then say, where has the inspiration from that track that we've just heard come from? So a sound that is uniquely yours, whatever that may mean to you. You know, as I say. So what kind of music do you make, for example?
Well, I make like R&B music.
Right. Exactly that. So R&B, hip-hop, pop in particular. Pop, by definition, is popular music. It's what everyone's listening to at the moment. So it's going to sound similar. But whether it's through your production or in particular your lyrics that make it yours, that is something that I want to listen to. I want to hear a piece of music and know a little bit about you, the kind of story you're trying to tell or story that you're working towards. Like I want to hear from you. I don't want to hear you being anyone else. So like that's sort of a top level tip. Whenever I'm listening to music, I'm not going to look at your background. I'm not going to look at where you're from. I'm not going to look at your age. I'm not going to look at your socials. If the music doesn't talk to me, you could have thousands and thousands of followers on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. To me, it doesn't matter, especially from a new music point of view. From a commercial point of view, labels, etc., they're going to look at your presence in the world. You know, are you relevant? Are people listening to you? Is there an audience there? But as a new music producer and presenter, I want to share good music because there is an audience out there for it. It might not be the major labels, but there'll be someone that wants this music.
Yeah. And I guess in that that could mean in your lyrics being like very honest about your experiences, whether it's happy or sad, good, bad, but that would help make it you, right? Yeah. And I guess musically, just blending all your influences together, that might make something kind of cool. I said earlier about sort of things having to sound right. That for me is from a speech point of view. So that's like radio and podcasting. When it's music, I am more than happy to hear raw demos because you can hear straight away if there's something there in those lyrics in particular, or if it's sort of dance music, like electronic side of things. It's like, what have you done here that is uniquely yours that can set you apart? The mix might not be perfect, and that is absolutely okay. And on many occasions we will say, we love this, go back and mix it a little bit better. Those drums are a bit too loud, or, you know, that synth is too quiet, whatever it may be, that we will offer feedback. And that's all because we want it to work and we want to play it eventually. It might not be quite right then, but we still want to hear it. You know, don't think that you've got to slave away and work until the early hours of the morning to get this thing absolutely perfect, because actually sometimes that being able to step back will hear something different to what you might be hearing. Amazing. And Leon, you had a second question as well, you said.
So, do you just have connections everywhere then? Because I heard you say like a person you know like went to LA, and like how does one even get those type of connections? How does people get those opportunities? Like,
so everyone that you meet from this moment on will be that connection. You don't know where they're going to go. So when I've met these people, I don't know where they're headed. I don't know what they're going to do next. They've got their own sort of life going on. And, you know, there are people who were, you know, in quotation marks, destined for huge things, who have then gone on to step out of the industry and do other jobs because it's not been right for them. Something has happened in their personal life, whatever it may be. And there are people that you meet and you're like, well, they're not going to last very long. And then suddenly they're in one of the biggest jobs in the industry, and you're like, how? People.
Yeah.
They might not be great at the job itself, but they're great at networking and putting themselves out there and wanting to do everything that they can. So it's not about finding someone in all corners of the world and making sure that you've got connections with them ready to go at any time. Every single person that you meet in this room, out on the street, your mates, whoever you meet, at gigs, you don't know where they're going to go. So
at recording sessions, if you get to go to a studio, be friendly to the engineer. You never know where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Everyone, like, no, but I guess these are things musicians typically get up to.
And you also don't know where they've been.
Sound engineers in venues. You never know who they,
well,
they could
yeah,
be the
if
next live sound engineer at the O2. You never know.
If you are playing an event in a venue, always, especially if you are the musician, always be friendly to the sound engineer, because they are in charge of how you sound to that whole audience. So they are your best friend.
Even if they're grumpy, be friendly to them.
Oh yes, oh yes. Because if you're the singer, they can just bring your microphone down.
Like even just in general, taking opportunities, even like this, like getting to meet people from the industry and stuff. So just any opportunity, really, especially just because you never know what will happen out of it.
Exactly, and it's just being willing to ask questions. You know, from a musician point of view, find those radio stations, those labels, the producers that you like, and just ask the question. You know, social media is great for that sort of thing, for being able to just have a direct route to people, to companies, to organizations, to just go, look, I've got this piece of music, would you mind? Or where can I send it? Or, you know, and you might throw out 10, 15, 20 different DMs, emails, whatever. It only takes one to come back for your journey to begin.
Yeah. You can have 100 no's, but it just takes one yes.
Always.
Yeah. So we're kind of coming to the sort of final chapters of this podcast here. There'll be chances for more questions if anyone wants to put the thinking cap on, think any questions. But I've got a few questions I like to do near the end of the show as well, Casey. So I was thinking, along the way, has there been any funny fails or stories like that from your career?
Yes, some I cannot tell to protect certain individuals.
You can leave names out and stuff,
I mean, there have been lots of looking back on them funny, at the time quite awkward and like
that's what we like.
Conversations to have. So we had a radio presenter who his bodily hygiene wasn't up to standard that day. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And he had been in the studio for about an hour, and then we had this really big guest coming in.
Okay.
So during the news...
Can you say who?
No. Only because of what they did next.
What the guest did next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Big guest coming in. So during the news, I stepped in to talk to the presenter, say, right, this is how this is going to go. And as I stepped in, I walked into a wall of smell. And it's live radio. You've got 3 minutes left on the news. We're about to play a track, and then we're getting this person in. We are on a time limit here.
Yeah.
So in that moment, as a producer, you have to make a decision. Are you going to spare this man's blushes and not say anything and hope that the guest doesn't notice? Or are you going to outright say, you stink? I would always go for the latter, especially like as a...
Honesty's the best policy.
That producer-presenter relationship, you get to that point where it's like, we're here to do a job. We're here to do the best job we can. Like, mate, you stink. So send out the assistant producer. There's a little shop next door. Can you go and get some hairspray? Can you go and get some deodorant? And so by the time that that first track came back, the guest was in the studio, so they had already got the smell. They refused to stay in that studio any longer until the smell was gone. So we had to remove them, play another track. They're running a little bit late. We'll be with them shortly, and then get in and just spray him, the room. It was a lot, and the interview was meant to be about 10 minutes. We did about 4 or 5.
Okay.
Because being in that room with all those smells and fumes, it was a concoction that was not like... It was a good thing it was radio at that point, put it that way. But so at the moment, it's a bit like, you've just got to have that conversation, you've just got to get it done. Now looking back on it, it's just like, oh, that's ridiculous. The situations that you have to go through in live experiences, it can be a lot.
Amazing. I was not expecting that, so that...
there's a lot of them out there. There's many producers. Like, if anyone ever goes into radio production, get as close as you can with your presenter, because in those situations, if you are not comfortable enough to say, mate, you stink... Moving forward with any sort of situation like that, there will be something that comes up and it will work against you. Mm-hmm. Being able to say outright, you stink, this is a solution, we're going to spray you.
Yeah.
He came out, he was devastated.
Yeah.
Incredibly embarrassed, but he knew that that wasn't the professional nature that we were going for.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we spoke about it, and we said, like, you know, we will just have a deodorant can in the cupboard if you need it, like, you know, whatever it is. But we got to be considerate of guests.
Man, I'm getting paranoid here now. Like, what?
No. Nothing that I'm saying here is directed at, whether it be about editing or your bodily odor, you're fine.
I'm off the hook. Cool. So that's great. Like, well, I love this. And also another question we always ask guests is: imagine you had like the Back to the Future car. You're driving back in time. You're meeting your younger self. Anything you want to say to the young Casey? What would you say?
It'll all be okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think I did about 9 years of freelancing at the BBC, a lot of daytime radio, so a lot more speech-based, but BBC Introducing was sort of my baby. It was the thing that I produced. We, you know, up for multiple awards. It got to a really brilliant place. And then I got to a point where I was like, I don't feel like I can do too much more with this show without some sort of drastic changes that we just weren't in a position to make. So I decided to step away.
Yeah.
So I went from full-time producing that to I'm going to go and work on some other stuff. So I set up a podcast studio in Ashford and tried running a business. Didn't work out. I got out at a very convenient time. Someone offered to buy my studio at around the same time that I was thinking, I'm probably going to have to close. This isn't financially viable. Yeah. And then I did a year of pure freelancing. So jumping from job to job, talking to as many people as I could, saying, look, I need work. And I struggled for that year. Yeah. Very, very difficult from a financial point of view, from a mental health point of view, going, where is this headed? Like, should I have dropped out of that thing that I didn't think was quite right for me anymore? Like, I'd still be okay now. You know, we'd still be on the path to, my partner and I wanted to buy a house, you know, all that sort of stuff, that life stuff outside of your job. And it was all on pause. Yeah. But the current job that I do now came entirely coincidentally at probably my lowest point at the end of 2023 through a conversation with, again, someone who I had met who had used my studio about 2 years prior. Yeah. She'd gone on to work with 2 new companies, and one of them wanted to build a podcast studio. So I went in, I built their podcast studio. She then left that role. They then needed someone to run that podcast studio. And I said, well, I'm looking for a full-time job, count me in. And I've just 3 weeks ago, have been there a year now.
Hey, nice.
I've bought a house, got a new car. I'm in a much better financial position. Yeah. And I'm able to just move forwards. Whereas 18 months ago, I'd be going, I made the biggest mistake of my life.
And it shows you how, like, the sort of path to, like, sort of success in your creative career isn't just, like, a trajectory. Like, it can take twists and turns, ups and downs, and that's normal.
Exactly that. And like, I'm so lucky. I still get to. I don't produce the show anymore. But so Abby McCarthy, who hosts BBC Introducing in Kent, when she's off, I'm the cover presenter. So I did a show last month. I've got one coming up in a few weeks, and I still get to dabble in that world. But now my bread and butter, what pays the bills, is podcasting from a commercial point of view, but diversifying it into video production. I'm a drone pilot now. It was something I've wanted to do for years. Nice. My current company allowed me to go and do that. Cool. And they funded that, which is amazing. And yeah, things have just grown and grown over the last 12 months. So, you know, it's been a really cool transition. And I still get to sort of just dip my toes back into that new music world. Like, that will never leave me. That is always there.
Epic. So, just before we wrap things up, is there any last questions for our live audience today? Whether it's to do with the music and artist side of things or the more production radio side of things. We've had some great questions so far. If not, Ross.
What's the first bit of equipment you owned?
First bit of equipment. So, from a music perspective, I used to be a drummer.
Yeah.
So I was in a mid-terraced house, had a drum kit, not for long. Neighbours didn't particularly appreciate that. Yeah. But when I was doing those gigs with my brother, I taught myself to DJ. Cool. So I bought myself a Newmark controller that plugged into my laptop. Yeah. That meant that I could practice at home, and then if any DJs dropped out on on the night of the gig, I could then jump on and do half an hour, an hour. So yeah, and I've sort of upgraded my system as frequently as I could. But yeah, I mean,
New Mark decks and the drums were the first ones.
yeah, they were the
That's cool.
first. Yeah, and if I talk more about equipment, if my partner hears this, she'll be saying, "And you're going to bring more into the house?" Because yeah,
we could probably have another podcast dedicated to just equipment chat.
yeah, I've almost got a room dedicated to equipment at the moment. So yeah.
Nice. And we've got Leo's got a question.
Have you ever worked with like Capital Extra or anything?
Not personally, but know a lot of people that have. I know some of the team that launched Capital Dance as well, when that launched with Mr. Jam a few years ago. But yeah, as I said, the radio industry in particular everyone knows each other. So, you know, some people a guy who was working on the new music show on Radio 1 has just moved over to a commercial station that I didn't know anyone at, but now I do, because his career has moved him somewhere else, and I now know someone there. So anyone that you meet, as I mentioned earlier, you might not know that they're that person that you need now. They might be the person that you need in 5-10 years' time.
Oh, so great. Thanks, guys. Amazing questions and like great answers as well, Casey. We found a bit about like myths about the job, what people don't realize about the job, biggest scandals in the industry, and your personal story with loads of advice for anyone listening to this who wants to sort of kickstart their own creative industries career. So I want to say thanks so much for coming on the show. Thanks to our live audience. We'll catch you later.
Cheers. Thank you.